Dear trading friends, I wish you a pleasant Sunday. Today we're going to do another weekly analysis. A lot has happened, and guys, more and more liquidity is accumulating above us. You might remember my last video if you watched it. Back then I said there were 11 billion above us. And as of now, it's actually the case that we have 12 billion by this point. And I want to point something out to you from my last videos if I go back again. And can you still remember how I said before the big crash, and I kept increasing it bit by bit, there were 5 billion below us. Here I also said that Bitcoin whales positioned themselves below us. After that, it was 11 billion, and in the end, there were 16 billion just lying below us. And then the big crash came. I suspect that now we might be seeing something similar, really something similar, because last time we again had 12 billion below us and we had another crash. And now we had 11 billion above us. And what does it look like at this point in time? We actually have 12 billion above us again. And not only that, now we're talking about Bitcoin. I have a completely different indicator coin that will probably show us where the market is headed in the future. Or rather, let's take a look at a few altcoins. I suspect that we will see such a massive run to pick up liquidity again. I can't say for sure whether we won't go down again before that. Of course, I'll keep an eye on that and also show you a bit of what's happening on the liquidation heat map. That's what we'll be going into detail about today, so you can prepare for it. Now I want to show you something else. Do you still remember my live video for everyone who was there? Thank you so much to everyone who always supports me during the live sessions. As I told you, I'm now testing a trading bot that's free and works with AI, and where you only have to give up 20% of the profits. I want to show you a little interim result now. It's a small account. I have 3 sub-accounts and I included it there. In the meantime, you can see here 87 profitable trades, not a single losing trade. We've had 53 long and 34 short orders. You can now just see the various profit margins of the individual coins. But I just want to show you now how brilliant this is running, even if the profits are still small at the moment. But page by page, profits are being generated all the time. Despite everything, this is going to be a longer test before I let you try it, because I still don't know where the risks are. First, I have to go through the individual coins and analyze these orders and the trades that were placed in them. How do they proceed and what dangers are involved? But as you can see here, it's been running like clockwork since day one. Even if the profits are small, you have to be honest about that. We can also take a quick look at the account analysis. And here you can see that we now basically have a 30-day P&L of 19.73% on what has been used in trades so far. That also needs to be said. You can see here how it has increased. At the moment, there is an unrealized loss of $12. But if we look at the P&L calendar, for example, here you can see this was October. That's when I started, on the 3rd of October. It's very recent. And if we now look at November, we also see small profits so far in November. Or just small amounts. I've split this across 3 accounts. That means 3 sub-accounts are running actively here. But I'll keep you updated on that. Additionally, there's something very, very, very exciting coming up. Because by now, everyone or almost everyone already knows my strategy. 100% passive income on autopilot with the Bitget trading bots, which I use as a small example. Yes, these are a few more bots that have been running for quite some time now, constantly making profits. If you don't know about this yet, be sure to watch the video. It works wonderfully. It's also really fun to see that people in the community are generating profits with it as well. But a community member pointed something out to me here, or rather wrote about it in the group. Now, on PIONEX, and I just saw this, the chart has been officially available there since September, and it's also the only one I could find. We're not trading Ethereum USDT, but USDT Ethereum. This means you can use exactly the same strategy I'm using here, just with Ethereum. That means I can increase my Ethereum instead of increasing my US Tether. And the brilliant thing about this is I can actually do that in the dollar cost average, i.e. in the DCA strategy, carry out the process exactly as described. There will also be a separate video that I'll go through with you, either live, or I could simply do it in a video where I start the test once. With the funded account from PIONEX so that you can see how it works and we're not caught in some kind of trap, fall into it. If you're not on PIONEX yet, I'd really appreciate it if you use the link in the video description to support me, and you'll also get a bonus. But that's it for now about the trading bots, just so you have a quick short update here. But now let's move on to the really exciting stuff, folks. Bitcoin, everything is consolidating. I'm switching to the weekly chart now so we can see that not much is happening here. We simply have a price range that now consists of just these 2 areas. That means between 115,000 and about 108,000. It's also important that we hold this range. I already mentioned this in the last video. If we close below this with the candle close, meaning below these candles here, that would be a new low and it could catapult us into an even lower price zone. But so as not to be too bearish, I want to tell you something. As I mentioned earlier, we now have 12 billion and it keeps building up more and more. What does that mean? If we now collect liquidity below us again, even more liquidity will build up above us. Because there's a lot more shorting going on, and then we could rise to 13, 14, or even 15 billion here. And I strongly suspect, hopefully I'm not wrong, that no matter where we go from here, we'll actually see a breakout to the upside and collect the liquidity above us. And very likely we could also reach a new all-time high. We can see this with Bitcoin now if we look at the liquidation heat map. And for that, I'm specifically using Model 3 on CoinGlass again because it gives us much deeper insights. And this is the indication I want to share with you now. At the moment, things don't look that interesting for Bitcoin. We do have a lot spread out, of course. I just showed you. We have 12 billion above us in Bitcoin. But what's interesting is when I compare this now with Ethereum or other altcoins, how much liquidity has accumulated above us, especially in the 3-month chart. It's really crazy to see. We hope, and I want to add this, that this isn't the last liquidity we leave behind before a possible bear market, though I don't believe that will happen now. But in a bear market, liquidity is left behind at the top, and in a bull market, it's left behind at the bottom. Accordingly, things look rather unspectacular for Bitcoin right now. And now it really gets interesting. Let's take a look at Ethereum in the same chart. And Ethereum, guys, if we compare that, there are actually billions above us. Of course, there's also a fair amount below us, not a small sum, we have to admit. For example, here we have almost $1.5 billion, and here again, another billion. So the price range from $3,500 to $3,300 could still become interesting. But where do I ultimately see us again? And then I'll give you another analysis that, in my opinion, could happen in the long term. So right here at 4,770, we have 1.8 billion. If I go up a bit, we have 3.17 billion. A little higher again, another 2 billion. Here, there are already 7 billion in a small cluster between about 4,700 and 4,800. If we go up a bit more, 2.2 billion, we haven't seen that before with Bitcoin. Such a cluster doesn't exist there. Then we have 1.95 billion. Then again, what was it here? 2.18 billion. So this cluster between, what do we have? 4,760 and 4,830. The US dollar is packed full of billions in liquidity, which is why I see us with a high probability up here with the price in the near or medium term future. Even if we go further where it's not so brightly lit because the gas isn't as high there, but between 4,900 everywhere, just look at this, there are billion-dollar clusters everywhere. We have that with Bitcoin. And maybe that's exactly why Ethereum is an indication of where the price could go in the future. Because here again, there are huge amounts also up here at 5,159, again in the billions range. We can still see it up here as well. Again, there are billions in clusters here, which we have with Bitcoin. We can also compare this with other coins if you like. Let's take a look at XRP. I think XRP was also really, really, really brilliant. That's exactly what I mean. On a 3-month basis, we actually see little below us. Of course, we have to remember 3 months ago, the price wasn't there either. But above us, just look at what's here. Again, the cluster is full here. We just have to think a bit long term about what could happen here. I think, what else did I have? If I'm not mistaken, Cardano, I also looked through that. We have a similar pattern there. There's very little below us, but above us, it's really heating up when it comes to liquidations. And accordingly, from a long-term perspective, I would prepare myself for a new high. But now I was talking about Ethereum. Let's go through Ethereum in detail again, because that could be our integration since there's just such a massive amount of liquidation up here. Really, I'm talking about the billion-dollar clusters. And with that, it will set a new all-time high. Let's go back to the Ethereum chart, which I previously analyzed for myself here. What could happen now? Here we see this downward trend channel on the weekly chart, and it's actually playing out beautifully. We've had it the whole time. Support, as far as the candle close is concerned, we're only considering the candle close now. Of course, we can pull this down even further and see, even with the candle wicks, we also have a kind of support zone that we might revisit. But overall, if I remove this now, and I've drawn something for you, what could happen now? Technically, on the weekly chart, because with Ethereum, we now officially don't have any bearish signs like we had, for example, with Bitcoin. I want to show that again very briefly with Bitcoin. If we look at the chart, here we have this long, massive bearish divergence. That's something I still miss with the altcoins. We can include it here, which might already have played out completely, or maybe it hasn't yet. I still see the possibility that we could go up to 130,000 or 135,000 again, and then maybe see another sell-off, which could bring us something similar on the RSI so that we get another rejection here. We'll see what happens. We're now on the weekly chart. With Ethereum and also with other coins, I'm missing a bearish divergence. We really have alignment with the RSI. My assumption about what could happen now if we really go higher and make new highs, as I said before, between 5,100 and 5,800, or was it 500? I'm not exactly sure anymore, but to have another new high. What could happen with the RSI now, since it's been recovering for such a long time, is that the price rises faster than the RSI can keep up, and we then get our bearish divergence, which I want to prepare for. What could that look like? That it would look exactly like this in this case. We make a new high with Ethereum, but the RSI fails to make a new higher high. And then we get the rejection, which could then lead to a larger correction. From a purely technical perspective, as a neutral trader who wants to analyze the chart objectively, that would be a possible bearish divergence for me, which could occur and push us a bit lower again. That's when I would sell Ethereum again and open short positions. Then, I focus heavily on liquidity. We just need to look at the trading performance. Take a look at it. Where do I have it? I think I've marked them all here. Let me quickly go back to the 4-hour chart for everyone who isn't following or is new to the channel. I sold Bitcoin here, I sold Bitcoin here, and here I sold Bitcoin. I went short here, I went long here, short. I shared everything with you, short, long. Only cashed in on one there. Here again, it wasn't perfect, but still made a profit. And here, but I'll analyze this with you again tomorrow. I still have short orders open here, but I really need to reanalyze them. And I'll only do that during the day to decide whether I'll keep them open. Because if we look at Bitcoin at CoinAnk in smaller time frames now, I really have to say we currently have a lot of liquidity above us. And I really mean a lot. That's why the 108,000 to 105,000 range is still a target for me. But if we look at the daily chart, it also looks very, very interesting, so we might still move higher to reach the 111,000 to 112,000 US dollar range. That would be roughly what I mentioned, this entry at the 0.5 Fibonacci or 0.618 Fibonacci, where I say we might pick that up in the short term and then head further down again. Why further down? For that, we just need to look at the 2-week liquidity for Bitcoin. In this case, I checked on Binance. We're so close to the 2-week liquidity below us, which is very, very interesting, as that's where the largest cluster currently is. But if we then go back to the 1-week chart, and this is really, really exciting, there's an incredible amount again at 117,000. And you can see that we now have liquidity just above us, which extends even higher. We shouldn't forget 113,143 is also very interesting. Of course, you also have to reconcile that with these stop losses. But here we have 113,680, which is the second stop loss. It should still be within range, which is also above this high. Because what we have here is a potential order block, which appears right here, exactly in this area where there's a major rejection zone. And possibly, if I see the price rising sharply here, I might raise my stop loss a bit so that it doesn't get triggered exactly at this point. And only then will a reversal occur. That's my current assessment. But the liquidity on a 2-week basis, which is just below us, compared to the liquidity above us, basically we're right in the middle, 105,000 to 117,000. But this is now very exciting and very hard to assess. What exactly will the next move be? Because on a 3-day basis, and this is bothering me a bit right now, we have a massive split of total liquidity both above and below us. What has happened since Friday are the new orders that have been placed. Strangely enough, everyone positioned themselves during this consolidation over the weekend. We've only been moving sideways and everyone wants to go short and long here somehow. So what could happen here? A massive washout. But I really see a bit of a roller coaster ride that could be waiting for us next week. And that's actually the only thing that's really bothering me right now, especially when I compare it to my own orders. This order is actually purely driven by Fibonacci. If you're not familiar with it yet, please, I can only recommend you check out the playlist. Learn trading step by step to become a profitable trader. Or the video, The Simplest Trading Strategy, and you're still not using it? I explain everything there in detail, and that's it for this video. I'd appreciate it if you leave a like and subscribe to my channel, if you haven't done so yet, and maybe leave a few comments for the algorithm. Otherwise, I wish you a nice Sunday and see you next time.